Alright, so let's talk about using the balance point information to find the mean. When you have a smart board, it's nice and easy to start dragging stuff over, but when you don't, you end up with either a pencil or a pen, and then you get into stuff. I'm going to jump into the first example, where you have to cross this off, move it over, and then you cross it off again, you slide it over again, you cross this off, slide it over. You keep. That is extremely tedious work to do. And there's a much easier way to use this information to help us figure out what the balance point is, what the mean is, because remember, balance point is just another way to think about the mean. So another way for us to think about what they are. So for each problem, we're going to use our data set, the numbers and the number line, to solve for the mean. So our steps is we're going to write down the data values in order from least to greatest. The nice part of that is they are already done for us based on being on the number line. Okay, we're going to then calculate to find the mean, and then accidentally put a number 3 there, but let's take a look at example number 1, not number 3. So go ahead and do that with it. But let's go ahead and let's write this down from least to greatest. So here's looking at this example, the test scores for Ms. Thorpe's class for their social studies test. Find the balance point of the test. So what is the average, the mean? Okay, I'm going to abbreviate this BP for balance point, but that's another way to think about the mean. What is the mean of that? So I'm going to go ahead and write this data set. So I have one score that's 77%, 2 that are 78. Not done with it yet. 1 that's 79, 82, 83, and then 3 that are 84. So that is our data set right there. And what we are going to do is we are going to figure out the mean. So remember, when it comes to figuring out the mean, add everything together, divide by how many there are. So I'm going to add up the values. Okay, and that's what that looks like. Go ahead and grab a calculator. And I'm going to switch colors just so it's easier to see the answer. So add those things together. While you're doing that, you may be wondering why you write them down from least to greatest. It's simply, when we're dealing with this, it's already put in order for us. It's just a simple way to make sure you get everything. So I got a 77 right there. Got my 2 78s right there. It's just a simple way to keep track of all of that stuff. Make sure you don't miss a value in there. All right, when you add those things together, you get an answer of 729. Now, based on space, I'm going to do my work up in here for it. Okay, but the last thing we need to do to find the mean is we need to take what we found there, and I'll erase this so it's not distracting. We're going to take what we found, 729, and we're going to divide it by how many numbers we had. Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 values. So it's 729 divided by 9 gives us our mean. Go ahead and figure that out. And you get 81%. So right there is our mean. That's our balance point for our data set, is 81% on the test. Now notice, no one actually scored 81%, but that's still the class average of those 9 students on that test. All right, second example. Mr. Teitsma played in 8 basketball games, or 8 basketball scrimmages. Here are his points scored in each game. Find the balance point of his points scored in each game. This is the lovely thing about being able to create these lessons, is I get to make myself out to be a better basketball player than I actually am. Okay, 14 points would be nice for me to score in a game. Probably wouldn't happen in real life, but I made the example, I get to do it. All right, step 1. Write down the data values in order from least to greatest. So we've got 2 games where 2 scrimmages where I scored 7, 2 where I scored 9, 2 11s, 12, and a 14. So it's the exact same thing. Calculate to find the mean. We are going to simply add up all those numbers together. So 7 plus 7 plus 9 plus 9 plus 11 plus 11 plus 12 plus 14. Go ahead and add those together. See what you get. Pause if you need to. All right, when you add those together, you get 80 points scored, which really makes Mr. Teitsma feel good that he can score 80 points in that many games. Okay, what we need to do next is we need to figure out how many games or scrimmages I actually played in to get to 80 points, which starts to make it a little bit more depressing that I scored that many, considering Kobe did more than that in one game. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 scrimmages where I scored 80 points total in 8 scrimmages. That should be pretty quick math when you do that division. 80 divided by 8 gives us 10 points. So, again, there's our balance point right there of how many points I scored in those scrimmages. Okay, that's my average points scored per scrimmage was 10 points. Notice, some of it was below there, some of it was above there. Okay, that's why when we average, it works its way to the middle. All right. Third example, and then we are done with this stuff, and we'll practice this together when we get together next. Third example, Mrs. Russell timed her class to see how quickly they could get out their homework assignments, and here are the times. So, recording our data. Twice they were able to do it in 15 seconds. Twice they did it in 16 seconds. Once in 17 seconds, 18 seconds, 19, and 20. Must have had an off day where it took them 20 seconds to get that up. All right. We're going to do the exact same thing that we have done for each of these. Okay, where we simply add them together. And you're going to go ahead and add these together. Figure out what you get. If you feel confident with everything, go ahead and run this all the way through to find the mean, and then push play and see if you got the same answer that I got. But go ahead and hit pause when you're ready to at least practice adding these all up together to get the total. If you feel confident to find the mean from there, go ahead and find all that before hitting play. I'll go ahead and wait. All right. Hopefully you hit pause. If not, quick hit pause before I start talking. The answer to adding all of these up is 136. Now what that represents is that's 136 total seconds that were spent in these trials. Okay, so that's 136 total seconds, and that is split between 8 times that she timed them to see once how well they would do. So total seconds 136, that's split between 8 times. When you run that math and divide that, you do 136 divided by 8. And again, if you're following along with me, feel free to pause and try that out. If you're not and you're just checking in, just keep going with the play. But 136 divided by 8 gives us 17. Now, notice I use the word seconds because obviously minutes would be way too long, but nothing in here actually says anything about what the actual time measurement is. So in this case, 17 would be good. We're going to cheat a little bit though, and we're going to call it seconds. Now, one thing I want to point out to you at this point in our lesson, we're at the 9.5 minute mark right now, and the thing is that we just did 3 examples in 9 minutes, including Mr. Teitsma's rambling about points scored and talking about how to set all of this up, that we did 3 examples in 9.5 minutes, whereas to do the balance point, if we were to do that, it's going to take you longer because you have to erase and move, you have to cross off and move, and it gets real messy, it gets real hard to see all of that stuff. So what you end up with is this just saves you a ton of time being able to organize your information, and then just like we found out, figure out real quick where your balance point is for the data. So take what we learned with the balance point in terms of how to do it, apply what we know about finding the average, where you can just simply take this number line information and then use it to help you add all the values together, divide by how many there are to find the mean. And notice for each of these, they all worked out to be a whole number answer. Okay, not always the case with stuff. Sometimes you could get a balance point, and I'm going to use green or blue for this one. You could get a balance point that's somewhere in the middle. That's still something that's potential for us to happen, but that's also why we're doing it by adding them together and dividing, because when you're trying to do it by putting the X's on there and trying to figure out in the middle, it can be frustrating, it can be a pain. This just takes it out of it. All right, make sure you bring any questions to class tomorrow. That way we can go over anything that you may be curious on, and we will get some more practice in on this stuff. See you then.